Climate change isn't some far-off problem anymore. It's here, and it's having a huge impact on our global food system. So today, we're going to break down exactly how this massive challenge is affecting the fruits and vegetables we eat every day. And, more importantly, we'll explore a powerful, structured path towards resilience, all based on the incredible work of an organization called TD.COLEAD.
But before we get into all the big picture stuff, let's make it personal. Have you ever really stopped to think about how a heat wave in another country or a flood thousands of miles away could actually change what's available in your local supermarket? Well, that connection's way more direct than you might think.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at why the whole horticulture sector is so vulnerable. Then, we'll get clear on two absolutely crucial concepts, mitigation and adaptation. We'll also dive into the really important question of climate justice. And finally, we'll break down TD.COLEAD's concrete strategy for building a much more resilient future.
Okay, let's kick things off with the challenge that's staring us right in the face. The horticultural sector. The one that brings all that amazing fresh produce to our tables is right on the front lines of climate change. It is, without a doubt, one of the most exposed and vulnerable parts of our entire agricultural system.
And the threats? They're coming from literally all angles. We're talking direct hits on production from extreme weather for sure, but it goes so much deeper than that. Climate change messes with water availability, it degrades the health of our soil, and it even helps new pests and diseases spread, like the TD.COLEAD, which can totally wipe out tomato crops. It's this crazy domino effect that threatens everything from market access to the very biodiversity our food systems need to survive.
Just to be super clear here, we're not talking about a few bad weather days. Weather is what's happening outside your window right now. Climate is the bigger picture. It's the long-term pattern, the average over decades. And it's the slow, steady shift of those patterns that's creating such a deep and lasting challenge for everyone.
And listen, the people on the ground, the ones actually growing our food, they see this loud and clear. A recent survey showed that a whopping 68% of businesses in the sector recognize that environmental risks are a major concern. The awareness of the problem, it's incredibly high. But, and this is a big but, here's the gap. While nearly everyone sees the problem, less than half, only 48% of exporters, are actually investing in concrete ways to adapt, like putting in flood prevention. So, and this is the key, knowing there's a problem and being equipped to actually solve it, well, those are two very different things.
So that really brings us to the how. How in the world do we even start to tackle a problem this big? Well, the response is usually broken down into two essential strategies, mitigation and adaptation. And getting your head around this framework is absolutely key.
Just think of them as two sides of the very same coin. Mitigation is all about attacking the root of the problem. It's everything we do to cut back on greenhouse gas emissions. Adaptation, on the other hand, is about dealing with the consequences that are already here or are, frankly, unavoidable at this point. It's about adjusting how we do things to cope with this new reality.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Mitigation helps us avoid the unmanageable, while adaptation helps us manage the unavoidable. It perfectly drives home the point that we absolutely cannot just focus on one or the other. We need both. It's a two-pronged attack, and both are essential if we're going to tackle this challenge.
And all this leads us to a really critical and often overlooked part of the climate crisis, the question of justice. Because the impacts of climate change are not felt equally by everyone, and this is especially true in the world of agriculture.
The people who are facing the greatest risk are the very ones growing the food that we eat. The small-scale producers, the farmer co-ops, and all the small and medium-sized businesses that are the backbone of the whole system. And here is the profound injustice of it all. They are also the ones with the fewest resources. They often lack the money, the technical support, and even the basic climate data they need to adapt. It's a massive disparity where those least responsible for creating the problem are getting hit first and hardest.
So, with such a huge challenge and all these inequalities baked in, how do we even begin to move forward? Well, that brings us to our final section, a look at TD.COLEAD's empowered response, which offers a real, tangible path to building resilience. So first, who is TD.COLEAD? Well, it's a nonprofit association of businesses that are all committed to one big goal, developing agricultural trade that is both inclusive and sustainable. They work directly with those vulnerable farmers and businesses we just talked about to help them become more competitive and, this is crucial, more resilient. And this chart brilliantly illustrates their core strategy. It's called the resilience framework. Okay, so along the bottom, you have the intensity of the climate shock, from mild to severe. And on the side, you have the type of response.
It shows that as a shock gets more intense, the response needs to shift from just absorbing it to adapting and eventually to completely transforming the entire system.
So how does this framework actually work in the real world? It boils down to 3 clear steps. First is absorb, which is all about being strong enough to handle an immediate shock like a sudden drought. Next is adapt, where you start making small, smart changes to your business. And finally, there's transform. This involves making fundamental shifts for long-term survival. And transform can be a huge leap. It could mean switching to entirely new crops that are more drought-resistant, or totally changing how produce gets to market.
And look, this isn't just theory on a piece of paper. COLEAD provides real, concrete support to help its partners move through these stages. We're talking about everything from raising awareness and testing new climate-smart solutions right there in the field to providing training, sharing knowledge, helping businesses get the financing they need, and even pushing for better policies. They're tackling this problem from every single angle.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, while climate change is, without a doubt, a massive threat, facing it head-on also gives us a huge opportunity. It's a chance to innovate, to collaborate, and to build food systems that are not only more resilient, but also more sustainable and more competitive for absolutely everyone involved.
All the information we've walked through today comes directly from COLEAD's Fit for Market Plus program, which is working every day to turn these powerful ideas into reality on the ground. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.